Sighing softly as the pen swiftly moves across the paper on clipboard, signing the name under the patient chart. Dr. Kim, there is a GSW to the chest incoming in 5. Heard the patient blood pressuring is bottoming out. Thanks, Karina. I'll be there in a minute, she said calmly, putting the chart back into its holder as she made her way towards the emergency ward. She has already called 2 more deaths in the morning. Both were result of gunshot wound, and she wasn't in the mood to make it 3. Whatever it was, she was damn sure to keep that record as 2 as the patient was rolled into the room. Her body was aching from the hour surgery. It sometimes made her wonder how she managed to survive her residency years now that she was attending. Weakly tired, she jiggled the keys and turned the knob of her new apartment, kicking off her shoes, slid them towards the corner as she was too lazy to straighten them out, as she always do. She entered the living room connected to kitchen, and her eyes widened as she saw her husband Jungkook was at home, leisurely sipping his scotch, still in his work attire, executing the aura of dominance as usual for her to witness. She cleared her throat, making him aware of her presence. After checking him out, her husband's eyes met her and they stared at each other for a while. She feels conscious under his gazes. He usually don't stay at home and always out on a mission for weeks without informing her. It's not like they are living as husband and wife under the same rooftop. Only the misery brought them together to be in this marriage. Hi, she said weakly, clutching the handbag closer to her while he blinked few times before saying, "Take a seat." She obeys as what's told, dropping her bag on the counter and taking the seat in front of him. Jungkook's gazes never left her, but she saw the dinner kept on the table and understood that Jungkook was expecting her to eat what's presented in front of her. Jungkook started eating as a cue for her to continue too, but she just stared at the food. Don't get her wrong, she appreciates his gesture, but she is allergic to mushrooms. Jungkook was chewing on his food as he watched his wife tensely holding the utensils, eyes shifting to one plate to another. Not hungry? He asked, but she shook her head. It's not like that, it's just I can't eat mushrooms. She gently put the utensils down. I'm sorry. Allergies? Oh yeah, you can say. She flinched when she saw Jungkook got up from his seat before taking the sip of his scotch. She suddenly felt straightened as how Jungkook was approaching her. She stammered, not wanting to offend him and cause trouble. But I wouldn't mind. Jungkook walked past her and she blinked rapidly, her body slowly relaxing as she saw him walking towards the kitchen. She saw him removing his blazer, rolled up his sleeves before putting an apron. You won't mind kimchi rice with scrambled eggs, would you? Snapping out of her day, she managed to say a yes. Without waiting any second, Jungkook started chopping vegetables and cooking the rice, which she watched him in awe, surprised to find that someone like him could be good at cooking. Perhaps she watched too much dramas and movies in which only female protagonists portray as cooking, while male protagonists enjoy the food and forget that people like Jungkook also exist who can perform the normal human task. And it did not help her when her heart started to beat a little faster, but this time she knew it's not because of fear but out of warmth, especially when her eyes could not help but dart towards Jungkook's arm, muscles, and how it flexes. Embarrassed, she turned to the other way and pretended to look through her paper files in meantime. Soon the new plate was gently placed in front of her in exchange for the older one. "Thank you," she said softly. Jungkook didn't reply anything, just sat down in his seat and continued his meal as if nothing happened. Wine gingerly picked up her utensils once again and started eating. Immediately, she was once again surprised, this time with how incredible the food was, as she murmured, "This tastes amazing." She was sure that Jungkook heard her as he lifted his gaze from his own plate, staring at her. She cleared her thoughts softly when she saw how intense his eyes were on her. His eyes were still unchanging, making it 10 times harder for her to read the mood of her husband. But when she noticed his eyes started towards the book she was reading earlier. It's a book I'm reading, inspiring to read about these persons as it gives me sort of confidence to fight the things being hectic at hospital these days. She doesn't know why she explained herself, but she wanted to be on friendly terms with his husband, as they barely speaks to each other or gets time. Jungkook always out for his business and she gets busy at hospital. So when he's at home, she's at hospital working late hours or even sleeping in hospital wards. But when she's at home, Jungkook's out and their time didn't match. It's rare that they talk or see each other. So far, rest the dinner was quiet as they didn't talk further and Jungkook just noted her remarks earlier. And as a token of gratitude, she offered to wash the dishes. After taking a warm shower and changing into her nightgown ready for bed, Ryan saw Jungkook on their share bed reading the book and somehow she feels nervous as they haven't shared bed yet, but today their time matches perfectly. The tension she feels she didn't let it show on her face as slowly she made her way towards her side of the bed, turned off the lamp while Jungkook's side remains on as she lay down quietly back facing him. She closed her eyes trying to sleep, but nervousness was kicking her again as she felt shifting on Jungkook's side. Hearing the sound as he put the book on the nightstand near the bed, the silence is making everything around more awkward. She flinched, grabbing the pillow tightly when she felt Jungkook's arm circling around her waist lightly, as she could hear his breathing close to her. Before she could process anything, he was already hovering over her petite body. Her throat went dry and words were caught in. Jungkook. Jungkook looked down at her, arms on either side of her head, his sharp eyes studying her soft brown ones. She also noticed how his eyes softened for a moment as he leaned down, and she closes her eyes instantly in anticipation for what comes next. But nothing happened as she opened her eyes again to witness Jungkook stopped in mid just above her lips and pulls back to kiss her on the temple instead. A kiss which lingered for a moment as she feels warmness spread through her chest and something inside her stomach moved. He pulls away looking at her, his gaze hardens again, and he went back to his side, turning his back on her just to pull out his hand to turn off the night lamp, leaving her speechless to wonder what just happened now. As the darkness around the room and the only moon cascading its light through the windows, Jungkook sleeps comfortably after taking her breath away as, got, as she got lost in her thoughts for the rest of the night. Jungkook was gone again. One couldn't help but feel slightly disappointed at the idea of her husband disappeared for weeks without telling her about anything, and their marriage feels like just strangers living in the same house. As an adult, she still carried her duty. Couldn't complain about that, she didn't like Jungkook's this behavior. But they barely talk and that didn't give her time to tell about her feelings or will he ever listen to if she did. Wine's mind was in a mess and she had taken leave from office to spend some time at home. As she wanted to rest, the past days has been really taking toll on her for not taking proper rest. Spending the time with nature make her body calm as she opted this as a hobby to manage her stress. She was at backyard busy watering the plants when the doorbell rings, thinking about who it could be as the thought of Jungkook came in her mind and she excitedly made her way through the hallways to the entrance, cautiously opened the gate only to get disappointed seeing the delivery man standing in front of her. She took the parcel with off mode. Maybe it's belonged to Jungkook. Are you genuine? She replied yes. The parcel is for you, ma'am, he said and organized the package in front of her in confusion. Did she order anything? Nope. Then who sent it? She takes the package anyway, closing the door as she made her way towards the bedroom to open it. Her eyes widened, seeing the next edition of the book she was reading these days, as she was just going to buy it, but who gifted her this? She only told it about to one person. Could it be? Her heart fluttered at the thought of Jungkook behind this, She never imagined that he was listening to her seriously, as she just assumed he was getting bored because he never replied to her, but apparently he did pay attention to her. Her mood was gradually lifted at the thought of her husband being attentive towards her and being this caring for her when he is not even around. She wanted to thank him for this, but he wasn't here and she doesn't know when he'll come back. She fishes out her phone and clicked the picture of the book and sent it to her husband. Thank you so much for the gift. I was planning to buy this exact one, but you got it for me first. I'm absolutely delighted. She waited for his response as she could see that he was online and he had seen her message but didn't reply immediately, maybe busy with his work. She didn't mind that much as she was happy for this kind gesture from her husband. After an hour, she got short reply as okay in response. Rather cold reply, but she still feels warm because this is first time he had tried to reach out or give his contribution in their relationship. There was mass casualty at hospital, bombing in the crowded place like mall, and the investigation still going on. But it resulted in the injuries of many people and hospital was in shambles. She knew that she was trying her best to save the lives of people, but they were really badly injured, and some of them were already dead when they were brought in. The atmosphere was really depressive as they have lost many lives, but few were saved. And even trying their best, they can only perform in their limits. After all, they are just human beings and not God, but people see them as their last hope. And disclosing the news to the patient family have been always the hardest task for her. To see their dreadful faces as they imprint in her mind for a while. She cannot even grieve knowing she still have to save other patients' life. But the death of the 7-year-old kid really broke her apart, as she tried her best to save him and did all the efforts, but he was already losing his breath, and after the loss, she closes herself down in her office for a few minutes to regulate her breaths from the dreadful events at hospital until Karina came back to check on her. She had spent days at hospital as it's the best way to examine the patient condition whenever it needed, pushing herself to her limits until Chief himself told her to go home and take rest after seeing her condition. Jungkook was not at home as she tightly went to bathroom to take a hot shower and it turned out to be longer than she expected. Trying to relieve her tense muscle or letting the hot water made her body relax. The shower was much longer than expected and she noticed that the light is already catching up as the darkness surrounding outside the window. Changing into comfortable clothes, she sat on the bed. Her thoughts were messed as she tried to relax because she couldn't even able to take proper sleep last week. But all screams and dreadful faces she saw at hospital making it harder for her to even close her eyes for a second. And as if she finally caught up with her grief of her patients, the tears started to stream down from her cheeks, and she sobbed quietly, hugging herself, curling into a ball. The more she tried not to think about anything, the more those voices inside her head gets loud, as if there's too much noise around her and she can't find a moment of peace. She cried, covering her face with her hands, letting herself finally release those emotions she was forcefully trying to hide for days. Giving herself a moment, she gasped when she suddenly felt a pressure on top of her head, stroking her head gently. Jungkook, her husband, has returned and now kneeling in front of her in their bedroom. She was about to say something, but Jungkook immediately pulled her into his embrace. Her head was pressed against his chest. It was then she realized her lips quiver and a small whimper escaped from her mouth. I'm sure you did everything you could do to save them. Them, her patients. Of course, Jungkook would have been new as the news was on television. She let out a sharp choked gasp as her fingers gripped on Jungkook's button-up shirt tightly as she broke down, sobbing by the minute despite Jungkook's hands was stroking her hair gently, comforting her. Jungkook didn't say anything else for the remainder of the night. Rather, he quietly stayed with her, rubbing her back, mumbling few words of encouragement, staying as a support system she didn't know she needed so badly right now. She no longer feels scared of her own husband. Instead, it's replaced by the warmth, as she feels him kissing her temples before he turns off the light. The night changed so many things between them, as she no longer feels awkward around her husband, rather developing feelings for him. Even Jungkook still don't speak to her much, but better than before, as she knows that whenever she is talking, he is listening her carefully. Because how his eyes widen and he blinks several times whenever she mentions something surprising to him, or how he clears his throat whenever she shares something sad. She realizes that Jungkook is not actually a cold person, but rather don't know how to express his emotion clearly. He still tries his best though. The great thing was when she noticed how his mouth twitched whenever she talked something positive about her day to him, or how his eyes always drift to her lips most of the times before he clears his throat to look elsewhere, thinking she won't catch, but she did. You know, they're saying the best kiss is one that been exchanged 1,000 times between the eyes before it reaches the lips. They haven't kissed yet, but she remembers the incident at bedroom when they almost did. She is too shy, and she admits that she likes the attention of her husband, or how her heart won't stop fluttering against her chest. Thinking carefully, as she also feels that their pace of growing this relationship is slow, still she loves the small steps they are taking together. Jungkook still stay out of for weeks, but this time he always left a note for her if she is not around, or drops a message to her when he is going to return. It's small things, right? But they are actually strangers who are taking initiative to know each other better. So what, they got married, they never have relationship like husband and wife. She knows Jungkook is caring person, as he doesn't show his emotion, but rather how he always make meals for her when she is home, or how he always listen to her babblings attentively. Jungkook was away for a week again, and she had holiday today, so she decided to spend it doing house chores. As she cleaned her room, first grabbing the basket of dirty clothes, but she could not help and notice Jungkook's basket of dirty clothes too, as some of the clothes wasn't there last week. Means Jungkook was at home one point at this week, unbeknown to her. So she stacked the basket on top of each other, decided to wash her husband's clothes too. She sought out all the white clothes first to wash. As she was putting all the dirtiest clothes inside the washing machine, her gazes fell on the white shirt of Jungkook left behind. She grabbed the cloth to put them with several others, but something caught her attention that was very visible for her to see. A red mark smudged on Jungkook's shirt, as her eyes narrowed, precisely examining it properly. Not even the mark, but the smell. The deodorant is also different from what Jungkook used, as she knows that he used the strong one, but this one was more on sweet side. Her heart dropped at the pit of her stomach, realizing, could it be Jungkook is sitting behind her back? It's not right. Everything was getting better between them. But how suddenly she found a lipstick mark on her husband's shirt. She felt so much anger, as the jealousy burning her whole body to even imagine that Jungkook was cheating on her. Just imagining her husband kissing another girl scratches her heart with the claws opening a wound which was burning her alive. Is that why he always stay outside and less at home? Because he have another woman outside waiting for him, but he was being so nice lately. All the possible scenarios in her brain making her feel nausea to even imagine. She accepted that their relationship is not like husband and wife, but how can Jungkook betray her? They are still husband and wife legally. She harshly threw the shirt back in the basket as if it burned her hands. To say Jungkook immediately understand that something was off with his wife, as Ryan avoided him like a plague every chance he tried to initiate any movement between them. She didn't even bat him an eye when he was in the house, always dodging his questions, and she can see the confusion on his face, but she was really upset with him to the point she doesn't know how to talk and sort out this matter. More like scared to find out if he confessed that he has been seeing someone behind her back. Don't get her wrong, she knew that they were already not in good terms since beginning, and that's not how it's supposed to be. But is that the reason Jungkook is looking for a company outside? But why when everything started to get better between them? When Jungkook has been started to open up to her? The whole week passed, but not her anger that continues to even scare her co-workers as they found their ever so calm doctor has been snapping out everyone except patients in the hospital, to the point that Karina had actually asked her if everything was alright. Mine actually didn't tell her what's bothering her, but said that she just stressed these days, to which Karina told her to do not take too much stress, as it not only be harmful for patients but her own health too. But she can't move on from the fact that she saw the lipstick stain on his husband's shirt. How it's increased her insecurity about herself to the point she started to doubt herself. Was she not enough? The scene from other night when he tried to kiss her replaying in her mind, the hesitation she saw in those eyes. She shut down all the questions and decided that she'll confront Jungkook by herself. She had taken the time she needed, and it only ruined everything further for her. She asked him face to face this time. Fortunately, there wasn't much patient today and she got the chance to leave early. She finally has decided that she'll talk to him whatever the consequences will be. She just have to wait until he come back home, as he was out again for this week and they barely able to talk as she was busy avoiding him. She entered the house and immediately noticed that her husband was home. Seeing his shoes messily placed at the entrance to her dismay was very unusual of Jungkook because he is usually very neat and tidy. What surprised her more that there was another pair present. Someone else was there too with Jungkook. But who? She placed her bag on the living room table quietly as she heard some noises coming from the bedroom, and her heart started to beat faster for entirely different reason. With cautious steps, she moved towards the bedroom. The closer she got, the louder noises get, as if someone was grunting in pain. Her throat feels dry and she gulps hard. Slowly she opened the door. Her face pale, witnessing the scene in front of her. Whole body froze seeing Jungkook's shirt covered in blood, acid dripping down from his left hand while he was sitting there groaning in pain, and an unknown man was actually trying to help him to stop the blood. Their eyes locked and she could see the shock ripple through Jungkook's widened eyes as he took her in the presence. The stranger beside him stared at her in stunned disbelief, unable to hide the shock that mirrored Jungkook's own. Wan carefully teared the shirt with the help of scissors to actually not harm Jungkook further, but her trembling hands were not helping her at all, as she took the view of GSW on the left side of Jungkook's back. She takes deep breath to regulate her breathing. It's not first time she is seeing GSW shot, and many times have treated before, but she feels nervous now for a whole different reason. Maybe that's why there's protocol that doctors are not allowed to operate on their families. But in this situation, she doesn't have any choices, as Jungkook denied that they can't go to hospital, understanding the seriousness of situation, that they were trying to avoid the legal matters. But she told them that they can't treat a GSW at home, it's higher risk of getting infection. Plus, they don't have any equipments needed. To her surprise, Jungkook called the strange man Soobin to bring the kit from his office. She wasn't aware about anything as she never stepped there. That place in the house was free from her presence. She had explored the whole house except that place, as she doesn't wanted to disrespect him when he told her to not step there. This doesn't seem like it's happening first time too if he have those things kept in the house for emergencies like this. She was so devastated to see Jungkook in that condition. She actually forgot about her anger, which was replaced by concern and care. Here she is doing her best to hold back tears while stitching Jungkook's wound needed to be, without any help of anesthesia. She winces with him every time he tries to hold back his pain. She could see his knuckles turning white from the intense pressure with which he gripped the bed sheets. but she forced herself to focus on her work. Here, I thought you'll need it. He offered Wine a cup of coffee, but she refused, politely shaking her head. Sorry, I used the kitchen for a quick caffeine boost. I can't function without it. Hope you don't mind. Wine shrugged at his word, as if her mind was occupied elsewhere. Soobin didn't fail to notice her distressed expression. She seems a bit out of place, likely still confused and in shock over the whole ordeal. She hasn't even asked what actually happened, might be still in shock. Don't worry, he'll be alright. He have faced far worse situation than this, and it's just a GSW. He just blurted it out as if it wasn't a big deal, but it was for YN. He was more worried for you to found him out in this situation, but I guess we can't help him. I'm sorry, but who are you? Oh yes, I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. He placed a coffee cup at the table ahead, extending his hand to her. Hello, I'm Kim Soobin, works with your husband Jungkook. He is my boss, that's all I could tell you. Jeon Wine. She handshake lightly as he returned to drinking his coffee. I have never seen you before, but you seems like you knows me and familiar with this house. Of course I am. I used to stay here with the boss before he kicks me out of the house 1 month before you guys married. And I know you because Jungkook actually talks about you a lot. He says nonchalantly, but Wine eyes widen in surprise. He talks about me. Yup, he's taking lessons to me how to woo your wife 101 guide. Oops, don't tell the boss, otherwise he'll shoot me. Wine doesn't know, but she feels this person is really goofy. He isn't good with girls, you know. In his whole life, he had ran away from them, as if seen a ghost. So I was actually surprised when he shared about you. Of course, you are his wife, but he actually will take initiative I never expected. Seems like this person loves to talk a lot too, but Wine didn't mind, as long as he is telling him about Jungkook. Is he really run away from girls? But why? Soobin looks at the ceiling as if contemplating whether to tell her or not, but he doesn't look like a person who can keep things to themselves. It's because he was surrounded with men since childhood, no girls interaction, so he usually avoided them, used to freak out in front of them in teenage. Suddenly he started laughing loudly, making her scared as if a ghost take over his body. He is really not worried about his friend who has been injured. You don't know about the recent incident, do you? I highly doubt he told you. What happened recently? You see, we were at a club a week ago in Barcelona and the two hot girls came towards us, approaching with the drinks, and we were already drunk enough, at least Jungkook was for sure. And I was little sober, but suddenly those girls started to straddle us. For me it wasn't trouble, but Jungkook, hell nah. That girl has actually tried to kiss him out of nowhere. Unfortunately, he turned away his face at the right time, and God save that girl. It's only Jungkook didn't have his gun with him. Otherwise, that girl might be dead by now. That much angry he looked. Poor girl got traumatized for their entire life. Her fist was balled up in anger after listening to this until she realizes. A week ago. It's the same time she found that lipstick print on Jungkook's shirt. So that's how he got that mark. Coffee finished, our work here also finished. He stood up as a cue to leave, and Wine came out of her thoughts as she looks at him wearing his coat ready to leave, and she follows him towards entrance. I hope we'll not meet again because I always come when boss is in trouble. Wine looks at him with raised brow. Just kidding, you get serious so easily. Smile, sister-in-law, boss loves your smile. A flustered smile made through her face along the blush drew on her cheeks as she clears her throat, shutting the door on his face. Jungkook's eyes fluttered open as he looks outside the window. The thunderstorm has broke his slumber as he tried to turn but find a pillow being kept there so he won't lay on his back to hurt his wounds. After checking time, it's past 10 at night. He slowly pulled himself up with difficulty, groaning a little. He tried to call Ryan but got no response. Jungkook stepped carefully into the living room, his steps light and measured as he winced slightly, mindful of the fresh bandages on his back. His right hand crouched over the wall for support as his left remained still at his side. The soft glow and dim lamp illuminated the room, casting long shadow across the furniture. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on Ryan laying on the sofa. Her breathing was steady, and a book lay on the floor beside her where it must have been slipped from her hands as she fell asleep. For a moment Jungkook stood there just watching her, the tension in his shoulder easing at the sight of her peaceful face. Slowly he bent down, picking up the book and placing it gently on the coffee table. His attention was now entirely on Ryan. Her hair had fallen over her face, obscuring her features with a tenderness that belied his usual bold demeanor. Jungkook reached out with his uninjured hand, fingers brushing softly against her skin as he carefully pushed her hair back. He froze for a moment, afraid of waking her, but the slight touch was enough. Ryan stirred, her eyes fluttering open. It took her a moment to focus, but when she did, she found Jungkook crouching by her side, his dark eyes fixed on her. She sat up in alarm, immediately concerned. Jungkook, what are you doing out of bed? You shouldn't be moving around with your injury. She scolded softly, her voice laced with worry. You need to rest. She tried to stand up, likely to guide him back to bed, but Jungkook's grips on her wrist stopped her. His touch was firm but gentle, holding her in place. Don't go, he said quietly, his voice almost a whisper, yet there was an unmistakable intensity behind it. He guided her back down to the sofa, his gaze never leaving hers. Ryan's breath caught in her throat as she met his eyes. Feeling the tension in the air, there was something in his stare that made her heart skip a beat. A depth of emotion she wasn't sure she was ready to face. Why are you avoiding me, Ryan? His voice was low and the question hanging in the air like the storm outside. Ryan stared at him dumbfounded. Avoiding you? I'm not avoiding you, Jungkook. You're hurt and you need. Don't lie to me. He interrupted, his grip on her wrist tightening just slightly enough to make her pulse quicken. I'm not avoiding you, Jungkook, she replied through her voice waver slightly, betraying her uncertainty. He didn't break eye contact, his gaze searching for her face as if trying to read her thoughts. Yes, you are, he insisted softly, his tone more tender now, but still earnest. I can feel it. Every time I try to get close, you pull away. Ryan looked away, her heart pounding as she tried to gather her thoughts. She didn't thought that he'd notice her distance, much less that it affected him so deeply. The intensity of his gaze, the vulnerability in his eyes, it was too much. Did I do something wrong? She shook her head, looking down. The words were trapped in her throat, tangled with the confusion and hurt she'd been feeling, the thought of that he had betrayed her when she found that lipstick mark on his shirt. But then Soobin had explained everything, how it was a misunderstanding and how a bar dancer tried to kiss him and Jungkook had no idea about the mark. But how could she explain this to him now? How could she admit that she had doubted him? Jungkook up Wan's face, making her look at him, his eyes searching her face for answers. Wan, please, he pleaded, his voice trembling. I can't stand this silence between us. Just tell me what's going on. Tears welled up in her eyes and she looked away, unable to meet his gaze. I don't know how to say it, Jungkook, she whispered, her voice breaking. I thought you were cheating on me. The words hung in the air, heavy and painful. Jungkook's eyes widened in shock, and for a moment he looked as if he had been struck. Receiving no response from him, she takes a shaky breath, finally looking into his eyes, telling him what's been eating her mind for days. There was a lipstick mark on your shirt. I found it when I was doing the laundry, and for days I couldn't stop thinking of what if you. They usually don't talk with each other this much. It's the moment allowed both of them to let out their feelings in front of each other. Jungkook doesn't like to speak much, but his observing skills are greater as he understands that something was wrong with Ryan because she seems to be happy few days until she started to avoiding him from nowhere, and he was confused as well. Never thought that could be the reason, she interrupted, but tears now streaming down her face. I didn't know what to think. I was so scared, Jungkook, scared that when everything started to get better between us, and then the mark, I started doubting everything, even myself. I wanted to talk to you, but I couldn't face you because I was scared. Scared that what if it might be true? Scared it turned out to be true when I started having feelings for you. Vine wanted to say those words too, but chose to stay silent about it. Jungkook's expression softened when he finally heard the reason behind of her avoiding him. He didn't remember about the incident clearly as he was so drunk. To his imagination, he thought that girl was fine, blamed his intoxicated mind. But fortunately, he realized that girl is not fine and pushed her away. A wave of relief washed over on Jungkook after knowing the truth. He pressed a soft kiss to the top of her head, wiping her tears, his voice gentle as he whispered, "You don't know how scared I was during this whole week, thinking you wanted to leave me and leave this home because you had enough of me and my nature, which I was hard trying to change." Wine looks at her in confusion. Jungkook's voice trembles as he speaks. "I know our marriage was forced and you weren't ready for this arrangement, but believe me, everything I did was to keep you safe." Shaking his head, his eyes glistening with unshed tears, he forces a sad smile, which surprises her even more. "There's no room for anyone else, there will never be, because you already filled my heart entirely. You are the true owner of my heart, Ryan." I never imagined that I could feel those emotions which people name love, when my life was already surrounded with hatred and violence. There was no space for anything. But then you came and changed the whole trajectory of my life. The past month, I'm trying to cope up with my feelings as how can I at least act normal around you, or to be seen as husband you can accept. Ryan was frozen in her seat, utterly shocked after hearing his side. Apparently, he was struggling as much as she was, or they both were fools in love. "I can understand your doubt, as we haven't been able to pass the stage where we can talk each other until this very moment. I was scared too, what you'll think." His sentence was cut short as Vine desperately pressed her lips to his suddenly. It wasn't a kiss, just a soft trembling peck to make him shut up so he could finally listen to her. "I like you, Jungkook," she finally confessed, her voice trembling as she stepped back, her eyes squeezed shut. Jungkook stared at her, his heart pounding as he watched every emotion flicker across her face. "I like you a lot." She slowly opened her eyes, lifting them to meet his, her breath catching in her throat. "I never thought of you that way before. It's true I used to be scared of you, but that was only because we never really talked. I didn't know what kind of person you were. But I never once thought of leaving you or this home because of your profession. I'm sorry I doubted you. I never." He put a finger on her lips, overwhelmed by the torrent emotion that made his heart feel like it might burst at any moment. Jungkook pulled Vine into another kiss. This time it was a proper kiss, slow, agonizing, and filled with intensity of love and emotion that words could never express. He was waiting for this moment for so long as he regretted that he didn't kiss Vine earlier. "I should be the one apologizing because I never thought you'd like me back, considering we never interacted much and had a proper conversation in the past. I just wanted you to feel comfortable around me, but ended up being opposite. Most precisely, ended up avoiding you as well because I didn't know how to act around you until I don't want to ignore you anymore." His confession made her shocked. Wine didn't know that this was the reason he decided to stay outside. She thought it was because of his work. She remembered what Soobin told about Jungkook, and she grabbed his hands, which was placed on her cheeks. They fall in comfortable silence. She never felt discontent around him as all the misunderstanding and confusion has been revealed. Can I ask you something? She whispered softly and he nodded his head. How did it happen? He knew she was referring to his GSW. She saw his face tense until he smiled to cover it. You can ask me anything, Wayne, but this because it's for your own safety. The less you'll know about my work, the more you'll be safe from everything. I know our marriage's sole purpose was to protect me, but shouldn't I know after seeing you in this condition? I don't want to see you getting hurt. He smiled sadly, kissing her hands. Something should remain secret. Is this something related to me? No, don't overthink about it. As I said, it's not that serious. It's just we are not allowed to disclose about our work to anyone. I hope you understand. He saw the doubt on her face, but she nodded nonetheless. Don't you want to eat something? I'm feeling hungry. What should I make? Are you crazy, Jungkook? She got up from the couch as well, grabbing his hands to stop him. You are injured. Let me cook something delicious for us this time, okay? Wait at the dining table. Wayne immediately left to the kitchen to prepare the dinner for them, tying her hairs in a quick messy bun, while Jungkook adores her from behind. No one can harm you when I am around. I'll protect you, Wayne. I promise.